Chapter 2491. Qin Mu's lips moved. In the end, she said, "Zhou Chengwang, I haven't thought about it yet." Zhou Chengwang nodded and still held her gently, as if he was coaxing a baby. "Mumu, trust me, okay?" Qin Mu didn't say anything, but she knew that she was a little soft-hearted. Zhou Chengwang didn't force her anymore. He just carried her downstairs and put her on the dining chair. He arranged the dishes for her and packed the food for her. He almost didn't feed her. Qin Mu ate very slowly, as if she was tasting it carefully, but he knew that she was thinking about something. Qin Mu wasn't a person who would soften so easily. The child in Gumei's belly was a thorn in her heart. She wouldn't let it go so easily. Zhou Chengwang only ate a little and stared at her nervously. Sure enough, Qin Mu put down the chopsticks in her hand and looked at him. Zhou Chengwang's voice was a little faint. "What's wrong?" Qin Mu lowered her eyes and said softly, "Zhou Chengwang, let's separate first before I think about it." His pupils contracted and his thin lips tightened. He looked at her with a hint of pain in his eyes. Qin Mu didn't avoid his gaze. They looked at each other for a long time before she said softly, "Zhou Chengwang, this is my biggest concession." The muscles on his face trembled violently, and he almost lost his composure. After a long time, Zhou Chengwang closed his eyes slightly. No separation, or it would be a divorce, right? But he didn't ask, and he didn't dare to ask. Qin Mu's voice became softer. "I'll take it that you agree. Zhou Chengwang, I know you, and you know me. Let's not make things difficult for each other, okay?" Her smile was pale. He gently stroked her little face, and his Adam's apple bobbed. After a long time, he said, "Mumu, what should I do to keep you?" His hand was warm, but her little face was cold. Qin Mu rubbed her face against his and lifted her head. "Zhou Chengwang, before we make up our minds, let's live separately, okay?" Zhou Chengwang maintained this posture for a long time before he finally said hoarsely, "Okay." She said that this was her biggest concession, so he must also concede a step. "I'll move out. You can continue to live here." His voice was soft, and then he pressed her hand. "Mumu, don't refuse or I won't agree. Do you understand?" Qin Mu's lips moved before he continued. "Don't worry, my mother won't disturb you again." I apologize for what she said. Qin Mu felt a little sad in her heart. He had clearly let go of her, but her heart felt empty, as if something was missing. She was a little lost and didn't know what to do in the future. She didn't even know if she had given up on him. Qin Mu was silent for a long time, and then she said with a faint smile, "Okay." Zhou Chengwang felt as if his heart had been stabbed. She said okay. Was she so eager to be separated from him? Was she not reluctant to part with him at all? But he couldn't ask more questions. No matter how much he asked, he would only be humiliating himself. Qin Mu thought for a moment and asked, "When are you moving out?" Zhou Chengwang was still looking at her with burning eyes. Qin Mu scratched her hair and said, "I want to travel abroad during the new year to relax. Why don't I move out? You can move out when I come back." Zhou Chengwang pursed his lips. "No, I'll move out." Chapter 2492. "Oh," Qin Mu replied. Now they were getting along quite peacefully. When Mrs. Zhou came over and made a fuss, Qin Mu calmed down. In other words, she knew that Mrs. Zhou's words would deepen Zhou Chengwang's guilt towards her, and the timing of her separation couldn't be better. She found that her love for Zhou Chengwang began to calm down. She still loved him. As for Gumei's pregnancy, she hated him, blamed him, and lost her temper with him, but she still couldn't be ruthless. "Zhou Chengwang, let's separate. If we can both get used to it." Her voice was very low. "Then let's not be together anymore." After saying that, she lowered her head. "Let's try." Zhou Chengwang's heart was as cold as water. He smiled bitterly. "Mumu, I won't get used to it." She looked up at him awkwardly, and then lowered her head again. He took a step forward and gently held her in his arms. "Mumu, I'll leave tomorrow, okay?" Her throat seemed to be blocked by something, and she felt unspeakably uncomfortable. "Zhou Chengwang, don't reject me." He closed his eyes and murmured, "Mumu, don't reject me." He lowered his head and kissed her hair. His heart ached. Qin Mu didn't say anything, which meant that she acquiesced. Zhou Chengwang should have been happy, but his heart was trembling. He couldn't be happy. He hesitated for a moment. Shall I carry you upstairs to rest? I can walk by myself. After saying that, Chimu realized that she didn't have shoes on her feet. She was stunned for a moment before she remembered that he had carried her down just now. Zhou Chengwang looked at her. Chimu didn't say anything. He directly carried her upstairs. He cherished every step he took upstairs because it might be the last time. After carrying her upstairs, he laid her down on the bed. Her body still needed a rest. Chimu closed her eyes gently. Obviously, she didn't want to communicate with him anymore. However, he knew that this was her most gentle way. Perhaps she pitied him. Zhou Chengwang looked at her silently, unwilling to look away, but he was more afraid that she would be disgusted. After standing there quietly for a long time, he left quietly and closed the door for her. Zhou Chengwang went to the study and stood in front of the window, smoking for the whole afternoon. It was not until night fell that he slowly came to his senses. It was already night. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The moonlight shone brightly beside the window, making it seem very cold and cheerless. Zhou Chengwang raised his sore eyes and smiled silently. Then he slowly walked out. The door to the master bedroom opened. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickly walked into the bedroom. There was no one inside. Qinmu. Zhou Chengwang's voice was almost trembling as he called her name, and then immediately walked downstairs. As he walked, his pace slowed down. Qinmu was downstairs. She stood in the kitchen and seemed to be making soup. She was tasting it. Zhou Chengwang walked down slowly. What are you making? Qinmu turned sideways. Seeing that it was him, she said indifferently, bone soup. Do you want to try it? Zhou Chengwang's voice was low. You know how to make it? Qinmu grunted. I just don't know if it tastes good. She tilted her head and looked very calm. Zhou Chengwang, I don't think I've ever cooked for you in the past few years. Then, she said self-deprecatingly, my love for you seems to be only on a spiritual level. Zhou Chengwang sighed. You don't need to do this. I can do it. Chapter 2493. He didn't bring it over for a long time, so she looked up into his eyes. Her eyes were a little watery. She wasn't as indifferent as he thought. Zhou Chengwang looked at her and stroked her little face gently. After a long time, he said in a low voice, Don't cry. Qinmu shook her head quickly. I'm not going to cry. His eyes were still burning. After a while, he bent down and coaxed her. Mumu, it's my fault. Don't cry. But the more he said that, the more she wanted to cry. Then, she turned her face away in embarrassment and handed the soup bowl to him. If you don't eat, I'll throw it away. Eat. His voice was soft and light. How can I not eat? I'll eat anything you cook. As he spoke, he took the bowl in her hand and drank half a bowl of soup. It wasn't very good, but it was barely edible. He quickly finished the bowl and said in a soft voice, Another bowl. Qinmu took it mechanically and filled another bowl for him. After he finished drinking, they had dinner together. It was already 8 o'clock when they finished eating. I'm going upstairs to rest. She lowered her head. You sleep in the guest room. I've asked someone to clean it up. He didn't appreciate her thoughtfulness. Instead, he said in a low voice, I'll sleep in the master bedroom. Qinmu didn't object. She nodded. Then I'll sleep in the guest room. As soon as she finished speaking, her body was dragged into his arms. With a thud, she crashed into his arms, and her nose was almost flattened. His voice was dark and hoarse. Qinmu, when I said that I'll sleep in the master bedroom, I mean that I want to sleep with you. She was stuck in his arms and couldn't move at all. She looked at him pitifully. Zhou Chengwang were separated. As she spoke, she was about to cry. He pressed her into his arms and pressed his face against her little ear. Living apart doesn't mean I don't love you anymore. He knew that if he didn't say it now, he might not be able to say it in the future. He pressed his lips against hers and said in a warm voice, Qinmu, listen to me. I won't like anyone else. I won't want anyone else. And I won't sleep with any other woman. Other than you, there won't be anyone else on my list of spouses. Do you hear me? Finally, his voice deepened. I don't care what your decision is. Qinmu's heart trembled. After a long time, she nodded and said, Got it. Very good. He kissed her little face. Mumu, I'm not here. Take care of yourself. And I'm sorry. Other than saying, I'm sorry and I love you, he seemed to be unable to find any other words to describe his feelings. Qin Mu shook her head. She couldn't describe her feelings. She thought that if she wasn't so proud, maybe she would face it with him. But she was too selfish to do it. That night, they slept together, and for the first time, they didn't do anything. Zhou Chengwang's arm was across the pillow, and Qin Mu was using it as a pillow. He looked at the ceiling silently. It wasn't until late at night that he said hoarsely, "Go to sleep." Qin Mu closed her eyes and felt a little sore. Then, her eyelids were kissed warmly, and she heard his gentle voice in her ears. "Mumu, don't cry. I'm not going to cry." Her voice was almost trembling, but she didn't dare to open her eyes. She was afraid that if she opened her eyes and saw him, she would want to cry. She had seen all kinds of negative news about him on the internet. The mistress was pregnant, and he knelt down to his brother. Qin Mu thought that half of the reason why she was soft-hearted was because of this. Chapter 2494. Zhou Chengwang hadn't gone to deal with the matters outside and had been with her the whole time. She knew that he had once placed great importance on glory, and with it, he had once lived a life of luxury and extravagance. Fame, power, women, and a wife who didn't make a fuss at home. But when his wife started to make a fuss, his life didn't seem to be that good anymore. Now, he was in a terrible predicament. Qin Mu said in a low voice, "Zhou Chengwang, do you regret it?" His body trembled. Qin Mu continued, "I mentioned a divorce the other time. It would have been great if we had. You don't have to be so troubled." After she finished speaking, she raised her head and looked at his handsome face. Zhou Chengwang narrowed his eyes and looked at her. After a while, he said in a low voice, "I don't regret it." How could he regret it? If he had divorced her, he wouldn't have been able to be with her. How could he have had such happiness? In this lifetime, he would never forget that happiness. It was a little pretentious to say that they were in love, but that was what he longed for in marriage. His little wife might have a child in the future. When he came back from work, he might not have a gentle little wife. He still had to take care of a child and a little wife who didn't know how to take care of herself. But no matter how busy and tiring he was, he would still feel that this was the life he wanted. But he couldn't say these words to her now. It would only hurt her heart if he did. As for the child in Gu Mei's stomach, they didn't talk about it anymore. It was like a ticking time bomb, a thorn in her heart. He couldn't pull himself away, and she couldn't force him either. It would be too cruel for her to do such a thing. So, she could only let him decide. But even if the child didn't exist, she might not be with him. She knew, and he knew, that Zhou Chengwang and Qin Mu had lived together for so long. He knew her character very well. She wasn't running away. She was just giving him time to think it through and change his perspective. This was actually her kindness. After the argument, she didn't make a fuss again. This was also her upbringing. Other than feeling heartache, Zhou Chengwang couldn't help but feel heartache. Although he knew that hugging her would make her feel disgusted and conflicted, he still turned sideways and hugged her. His lips found hers and blocked her mouth. Qin Mu instinctively turned her face away, but he quickly held her hand and kissed her passionately. Qin Mu sucked in a breath of air, and her body shrunk back like a caterpillar. However, her back was the side of the bed, and as she shrunk back, her body became empty, and she fell straight onto the soft carpet. Originally, Zhou Chengwang could have pulled her up, but he didn't. She didn't know what he was thinking, but he didn't pull her up. Instead, he chose to fall off the bed with her. Their bodies were stacked on top of each other, and the bathrobe on their bodies had fallen apart due to the sudden change. Qin Mu laid on his back with his lips slightly parted. His long hair was messy, giving off a sense of beauty. Qin Mu was lying on her back. Her lips were slightly open, and her long hair was messy. She looked beautiful. Qin Mu had been his wife for so long. How could she not know the meaning behind his gaze? She turned her face away. Zhou Chengwang were living separately. His fingers gently stroked her little face, as if he couldn't bear to part with her. His fingers gently stroked her little face, as if he couldn't bear to let go. Qin Mu was a little embarrassed. Zhou Chengwang, I don't want. His fingers paused, and his eyes were still on her little face. He breathed softly. Mumu. Chapter 2495. Qin Mu didn't say anything, nor did she struggle. She just let him hug her. Later, she cried. She pinched his shoulder with her fingers and cried silently. She was a little embarrassed. She should have pushed him away, but she had no choice. She couldn't bear to. But no matter how reluctant she was, she still had to be separated from him. She cried on his shoulder. She couldn't help but cry. She had never been so vulnerable before. Zhou Chengwang's heart was wet and warm. He didn't know how to comfort her. His voice was low and hoarse. "Mumu, don't cry. It's my fault. Don't cry," he said dotingly. "If you want to separate, we'll separate for a while. I'll come back when things are settled. Okay?" She didn't say anything. She just cried until her eyelids were slightly swollen. She buried her face in his shoulder and refused to raise it. Her body twitched, and Zhou Chengwang kept patting her back and coaxing her. After a long time, she wrapped her slender arms around his neck and asked unwillingly, "When did it happen?" Zhou Chengwang's body stiffened. Qin Mu still asked. This was a great embarrassment for her. He knew what it meant the best. It meant that she was compromising in some sense. And he also knew that she was crying because she couldn't bear to part with him. The more she couldn't bear to part with him, the more his heart ached. Qin Mu shouldn't have to bear these things. Zhou Chengwang hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "Before Gu Mei was sent abroad by me, she asked me to meet her." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt the woman's body stiffen in his arms. He hugged her and pressed his lips against her ear. His voice was extremely hoarse. "Mumu, don't ask. Be good. Don't ask." Qin Mu asked almost stubbornly, "Did you have sex that time?" Zhou Chengwang hugged her without replying. The more he knew about the details, the more it would hurt her. Although he didn't say anything, Qin Mu could guess that he was willing to go to bed with her. No man could refuse a woman. In the time when Zhou Chengwang and Gu Mei were together, it was more like a breakup. But the pregnancy was probably set up by Zhou Chengwang. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a mess now. Under the dim light, Qin Mu held his neck with one hand and slapped him with the other. The slap wasn't heavy, but it wasn't light either. It was carried out in the middle of the bed, and it was the most direct way to vent one's anger to the person closest to them. After that, Zhou Chengwang caught her little hand and placed it on his chest. He knew and understood what she was thinking, which made his heart ache even more. For a moment, he did not know what to do with her, because his little wife was so sad. She hated him, but she could not bear to leave him. He was even more reluctant, so he said in a low voice with some embarrassment, "Mumu, I won't leave, okay?" As soon as he finished speaking, she buried her face in his neck and did not speak. Zhou Chengwang's heart suddenly softened. He lowered his head, searched for her little mouth, and kissed it gently. She did not refuse and let him kiss her. When his kiss moved to her little neck, she raised her head and panted softly. Her eyebrows and eyes were also a little colorful. "If I could get pregnant this time, how great would that be?" Zhou Chengwang's body froze. He stopped all his movements, raised his eyes, and looked straight at her. Chapter 2496. His eyes were burning, and he kept looking at her. His Adam's apple also rolled sexily, and his voice seemed to be filled with sand. "Mumu, are you serious?" Qin Mu's head was resting on the pillow, which looked soft and soft. Her long hair was spread out on the white pillow, and there was a kind of delicate beauty. She said softly, "But I can't get pregnant, so Zhou Chengwang, that's why your mother cares so much about this child, right?" He sighed, buried his face in her neck, and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Mumu, the most important person in my heart is you." "But she has a child." Qin Mu smiled bitterly. "Zhou Chengwang, you definitely don't know what to do with me, but I don't know what to do with you either." Zhou Chengwang looked at her and said in a low voice, "Then let's try." He said it humbly, but Qin Mu blocked his lips and turned her little face to the side. "Forget it." Zhou Chengwang's body had actually become hot. He looked at her with a gentle gaze. "Are you deliberately teasing me?" Qin Mu turned her face to the side. "No." He looked at her, and his eyes were still burning. "Whether you do or not, you have succeeded." As he said that, he kissed her hard on the lips. Qin Mu suddenly struggled, because she felt that he wanted to do it for real. "The last night, be good." He murmured, "Qin Mu, I have never betrayed our relationship. Ever since I fell in love with you, I have never done it." He knew what she was thinking, so he said in a low voice. Qin Mu opened her eyes wide and looked at him. This was the deepest topic between them, and he said it. At that moment, Qin Mu seemed to have received some kind of redemption. She gently closed her eyes. If it was the last night, then she would sink into it. Zhou Chengwang's heart was burning. Although it was the last night, he felt that it was the first time for him and Qin Mu. He had never felt such agitation before. He actually felt a sense of helplessness, not knowing what to do. His fingers were trembling, and so was his body. Starting from the kiss, he slowly threw himself into it, burning her up bit by bit. The night was long and short. He kept clinging to her, and their sweat tangled together, as if they were going to cling to each other until the end of time. At the last moment, he whispered unwillingly into her ear, "I love you. Do you know that?" Qin Mu opened her misty eyes. There was a trace of pain and reluctance in her eyes. But before she said anything, he already knew her choice. She still wanted to separate. After it ended, he didn't let go of her and just hugged her tightly. Qin Mu was in his embrace, her eyes wide open as she looked out the window. The sky was already starting to brighten. She continued to look out silently. Finally, it was still 7 o'clock in the morning, the time he usually woke up. Zhou Chengwang lowered her head and looked at the person in her arms. She said softly, "Are you leaving?" "Yes." He didn't want to make himself worse. Although he wanted to force her to stay by his side, in the end, he couldn't bear to do so. He lowered his head and kissed the space between her eyebrows. His voice was particularly hoarse. "Mu Mu, take care of yourself. Also, wait for me to come back." Qin Mu pursed her lips, looked up, and gave him a smile. She also gave him a trace of warmth. Zhou Chengwang reached out and pinched her little face. He lifted the quilt and got up, but he had only taken 2 steps when he suddenly turned back, bent down, and kissed her lips hard. Chapter 2497. Qin Mu's lips moved slightly, but she still accepted him. Finally, he left her lips. He panted slightly and looked at her deeply. Qin Mu lay down, her fingers hanging by the side of the bed. Every finger was weak. She moved, but in the end, she didn't hold his hand. 10 minutes later, Zhou Chengwang walked out of the bathroom. He was already dressed. He stood at the head of the bed and said in a hoarse voice, "I'm leaving." At this moment, he actually felt that it was easy for Qin Mu to leave. At least she didn't have to drink bitter medicine in the morning, and she didn't have to bear his demands every night just because he couldn't wait to have a child. These days, she was actually very tired. Love wasn't like this. Once love lost its color, it wouldn't be beautiful. "Mu, if I can't give you beauty, then I might as well let go." Zhou Chengwang smiled, but it was a bitter smile when he turned around. He thought that when he came back, would Qin Mu still be waiting for him here? Would she still be waiting for him? Zhou Chengwang left and slowly went downstairs. When he left, his heart was as cold as water. Qin Mu lay quietly on the bed, and there were some tears in the corners of her eyes. She told herself not to cry. This was the best way, wasn't it? She didn't make things difficult for him, nor did she make things difficult for herself. But he was gone, and it was empty. She suddenly lifted the blanket and ran to the balcony. The morning light was a little dazzling, and it was sour and astringent. Qin Mu opened the window and looked at the white sports car parked downstairs. Zhou Chengwang stood by the car with a suitcase beside him. He stood by the car and was smoking. Probably because of the sound of her opening the window, he raised his eyes and looked at her. The corners of Qin Mu's mouth curled up slightly. She wanted to squeeze out a smile, but in the end, she still couldn't smile. Zhou Chengwang still finished smoking a cigarette, threw the cigarette but on the ground, and lowered his head to put out. When he looked up again, he smiled at her, then opened the door and got into the car. Qin Mu stared at him with tears in her eyes. His car slowly drove away from the villa's black carved gate. Qin Mu clenched her fists and stood there for a long time. 5 minutes later, a servant knocked on the door and came in. Qin Mu was still standing there when she heard the servant's low voice. "Madam, sir had instructed me to let Madam rest after breakfast. Breakfast is ready." Qin Mu blinked. What about him? Didn't he eat? He must not have eaten anything in such a short period of time. The servant's voice sounded a little awkward. After a while, he apologized. Yes, sir, left without eating anything. Chimu looked down and clenched her fists even tighter. At this moment, she actually had the urge to call him back. However, that impulse only lasted for a moment. She quickly gave up, turned around, and said indifferently, "I'll go down in a moment." The servant nodded and quickly retreated. Chimu went to wash her face and walked downstairs slowly. Breakfast was ready, and it was all her favorites. However, after taking a bite, she frowned, feeling that something was wrong. After a long time, she remembered and murmured in a daze, "Don't you need to take your medicine this morning?" "Madam, what did you say?" the servant asked softly. Chimu shook her head. "Nothing." Chapter 2498. Zhou Chengwang's departure didn't have much impact on Chimu's life. He seemed to have arranged everything. The servants at home were properly arranged. It seemed that the servants had also received his instructions. Everything went according to her wishes. When she felt better, she went to see the progress of the renovation of the gallery. The designer told her that Zhou Zong had come to see it several times and had given some suggestions. In addition, he had been paying for the expenses at home. Those annoying things didn't come to her at all. She lived as comfortably as before, except that she didn't have Zhou Chengwang by her side. A month after he left, Qin Mu's gallery had been renovated. She asked Cher to have a look together that day. Cher was pregnant. Yi Muyun was worried, so he went with her and came out after only 5 minutes. After they came out, Qin Mu smiled lightly. "Let's find a place to have a drink." Yi Muyun raised his hand to check the time. "I have a meeting later." "Qin Mu, you accompany Cher? It's been a long time since we last met." The last sentence was said with deep meaning. In the past month, Qin Mu just called him to tell him that she was fine. Then she stayed in the villa every day and didn't see anyone. Yi Muyun didn't dare to force her. He often learned about her situation through the servants. Today, she took the initiative to contact him and let Cher accompany her to relax. Cher knew what he meant and said, "Then go quickly. You don't need to pick us up at noon. I'll call the driver to come." Yi Muyun smiled and reached out to pinch her little face. "Okay, I'll go first." Then he looked at Qin Mu. "Keep an eye on her. Don't let her drink coffee." Qin Mu said with a smile, "Don't worry, brother. I'll keep an eye on Cher." Cher winked at her. "Qin Mu, I won't go easy on you." Yi Muyun left first with a smile. Qin Mu took Cher's arm and walked into a nice dessert shop. She only ordered a milkshake for Cher. Cher made a fuss for a long time, but Qin Mu didn't go easy on her. "Stingy," the beautiful pregnant woman complained. Qin Mu smiled and looked at her. "Big brother didn't let you eat them. Besides, he's doing it for your own good. These will affect the fetus." She paused for a moment, then said with understanding, "Actually, even if I gave you some, you wouldn't drink it. You're just throwing a tantrum like a child to make people care about you, so that big brother's attention is on you, right?" To put it bluntly, little Cher was jealous. She already had a Xiao issue, and now she had another one in her belly. Cher felt that her status was being threatened, so she acted like a spoiled child. Big brother liked this type of woman. Not only did he not expose her, but he also loved her very much. Qin Mu was a little envious. In fact, she had been loved like this before. If it hadn't been for Gumei, they would have been happy forever. Cher didn't notice the disappointment in her eyes and protested. "Qin Mu, I'm 4 years older than you. I'm not a child. But my brother dotes on you like a little kid." Qin Mu couldn't help laughing. "Even I feel that it's a little abnormal." Cher blushed and didn't say anything. Chapter 2499. She said it very sincerely. Although Zhou Chengwang used to be a fool, Gumei's pregnancy was something that happened before Zhou Chengwang and Qin Mu had feelings for each other. Qin Mu couldn't accept it at the moment, but it wasn't as simple as a divorce. Qin Mu lowered her head and took a sip of coffee. Then she smiled bitterly. "I know what you're talking about. At the beginning, I saw Gumei with a protruding belly, and it was really uncomfortable. At that time, I wanted a divorce and leave him. But," Qin Mu pursed her lips, "but I found that I was hesitating. Maybe it's like what you said, he treats me too well. I can't bear to leave him." Cher's little face was full of worry. She frowned adorably. She hugged Qin Mu's arm and said tenderly, "Then you still separated from him?" Qin Mu smiled bitterly. "What else can I do, Cher? If I'm with him, I'll definitely hear news about Gu Mei every day. I can't stand it." Cher nodded. Suddenly, she knew why Zhou Chengwang agreed. It was because he didn't want to hurt Qin Mu. She lowered her voice and asked, "Qin Mu, what do you think? Do you want your brother to step in?" Although it was a little vicious, Cher was biased towards Qin Mu from the bottom of her heart. Gu Mei. She had warned her before that if she was caught between Qin Mu and Zhou Chengwang, she wouldn't let her off. Qin Mu was slightly surprised. Then, she shook her head. "No, it's fine." Cher didn't say anything else. She drank the milkshake and looked at Qin Mu from time to time. Qin Mu's voice was low. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." She looked up and smiled. "It's different from 8 years ago." Cher grunted in affirmation. At this moment, the door was opened. Qin Mu was stunned when she saw the person who walked in. Cher's eyes were burning. That person was Gu Mei. The person accompanying her was none other than Qin Mu's mother-in-law. It was truly ironic. Qin Mu didn't move. She couldn't move either. Cher held her hand tightly and said in a low voice, "Why don't we go somewhere else?" Qin Mu's gaze was still on Gu Mei's face as she said word by word, "No need." She could tell that Zhou Kerson's mother was in a difficult position. It was probably Gu Mei who dragged her in. When they walked together, it really looked like the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had deep feelings for each other. She and Zhou Chengwang had been married for so many years, but they had never been so intimate. Qin Mu's gaze made Mrs. Zhou a little uncomfortable, so she pulled Qin Mu and said, "Let's go. If Qin Mu is here, it won't be good if Chengwang finds out." Gu Mei smiled at Mother Zhou. "Didn't I tell Chengwang that he will come to pick us up?" Zhou Kerson's mother was sad. She said that she would be outside and asked her son to pick her up because he happened to be nearby. But Chengwang didn't know that Gu Mei was here. If they made a fuss, she knew that Chengwang had moved out. She thought that he had made up his mind, but he didn't. Chengwang didn't visit Gu Mei even once. Instead, he called her several times and asked her to persuade Gu Mei to abort the child. How could Zhou Kerson's mother bear it? This was her grandson, but she could also tell that Chengwang was unhappy. He didn't even visit her once for a month. It was obvious that he was angry. Chapter 2500. So these days, Mother Zhou was in a dilemma and couldn't make up her mind. Now that Gu Mei said this, she sighed. "Gu Mei, it's better to keep a low profile. Chengwang didn't want this child. If you forced him, how could he not be radical?" Gu Mei's thoughts were completely different from Mother Zhou's. She was thinking about how to force Chengwang to abdicate. As a mother, she needed to fight for the child's identity. She didn't want the child to bear the name of an illegitimate child. Gu Mei pulled Mother Zhou to sit next to Qin Mu and Cher. It was probably intentional. Cher wanted to say something, but Qin Mu held her hand and whispered, "You don't have to do this for me. Sister-in-law, don't forget that you are pregnant." "It's too easy for her," Cher said angrily. Qin Mu looked down. "You don't have to be angry for someone who isn't worth it. You are in a high state now." Cher held her hand. She saw that you were too good-tempered, so she deliberately provoked you. "Don't be fooled." Qin Mu raised his lips and gave a faint smile. "Of course not." Cher nodded with relief. "Just don't faint from anger." Just as she said this, the person who pushed the door open and came and made her eyes freeze. It was Zhou Chengwang. He couldn't be here to find Qin Mu, right? If he wasn't looking for Qin Mu, was he here for Gu Mei? Cher turned her head and looked at Qin Mu. Qin Mu was actually smiling. Cher was a little confused. She whispered, "You are still smiling?" Qin Mu looked up and smiled. "Why aren't you smiling? My hubby is here to pick me up." As she said this, she looked at Zhou Chengwang. To be honest, the first person Zhou Chengwang saw was not his mother and Gu Mei, but Qin Mu. He was a little stunned and looked at her. Of course, at this moment, he had already seen Gu Mei. His heart tightened, and he roughly knew what was going on. He walked over quickly, ignoring Gu Mei and his mother, and stood directly in front of Qin Mu's table. They hadn't seen each other for a month. His gaze fell on her face with a bit of longing. His hand held onto the edge of the table as he said in a low voice, "Why did you come out? It's cold outside today." Qin Mu hummed and said in a soft voice, "I went to see the progress of the gallery." Cher is also quite satisfied. Zhou Chengwang smiled. He couldn't help but reach out to touch her hair. He only touched it for a moment before withdrawing his hand. As long as you like it. At this time, Mother Zhou couldn't sit still. Gumei said softly, Zhou Chengwang, we want to go back. With her belly propped up, she felt that he would send them back first for the sake of his mother and the child in her belly. So what if he liked Qinmu? In the end, they still separated. Just when Cher wanted to say something, Qinmu said softly, Honey, we don't have a car. Can you send me and Shuer it back later? Of course. He looked at her little face greedily and thoughtfully put her coat on her shoulders. When she stood up, he buttoned it up one by one. Shuer air blinked. Damn, when did Qinmu's battle prowess become so strong? And Zhou Chengwang knew it. But as long as Qinmu said it and showed that she wanted to reconcile, it was enough to make him go crazy. He held Qinmu's little hand and asked gently, Are you cold? I want to eat hot pot later. Qinmu looked up with a particularly innocent expression, just like before. For a moment, Zhou Chengwang was a little dazed. He couldn't even tell if she was real or just acting. And Gumei was even more furious. She suddenly held her belly and stood up. Chengwang. Chapter 25:01. Zhou Chengwang looked over and said calmly, Gumei, there's a limit to my patience. Gumei looked a little depressed and said softly after a while, But I'm pregnant with your child. Are you going to leave with him now and not care about me? After she said that, everyone around pricked up their ears. It seemed like it was another scene of a scumbag making a mistress pregnant. This scene was embarrassing for Zhou Chengwang, and it was the same for Qinmu. But Qinmu didn't back down. She hooked her arm around Zhou Chengwang's, and her lips trembled slightly. Miss Gu, I know that things will happen between secretaries and their superiors, but Chengwang was just drunk. I handed him over to you because I was relieved. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. If you think you should take responsibility, I can withdraw from our marriage, but Qinmu lowered her head and stroked her flat stomach. Miss Gu, you're going to be a mother too. Can you bear to let my child be fatherless? Everyone looked at Gumei with disdain. It was too shameful. Even when the wife was pregnant, she didn't let go of the family. She used underhanded means to seduce her superior. If she was pregnant, she should abort the child. That was the real deal. Moreover, she bullied them just because she was pregnant. She was too despicable. Mama Zhou was surprised and delighted when Qinmu said that. If Qinmu was really pregnant, she believed that she would definitely stand by Qinmu's side because she was willing to fulfill her son's wishes. Gumei couldn't care less. She didn't believe that Qinmu was pregnant. If she was pregnant, Zhou Chengwang wouldn't move out. So she screamed without a care, She can't be pregnant. She can't be pregnant at all. The surrounding gazes were even more disdainful. Gumei could feel it too, and Zhou Chengwang's gaze was like an icy knife. Gumei shrank back and pushed the blame to Mama Zhou. Chengwang, your mother said it. I didn't follow her or investigate her. Mama Zhou didn't know what was going on, and she couldn't figure out the truth now. There was still a glimmer of hope in her heart that Qinmu was really pregnant. Therefore, Mother Zhou did not say anything and did not express her position. Enough. Zhou Chengwang held Qinmu's hand. Whether she can get pregnant or not, I won't divorce her. At this moment, there was a sigh from the surroundings. So, even a scumbag has true love. Exactly. Look at the appearance and temperament of his legal wife. If I didn't divorce her, it would be such a loss. He's a man. Eating secretly is just for a change of taste. Only fools would divorce. In the midst of the condemnation, Zhou Zong's face darkened. He glanced at the crowd and finally said with a dark face, Mumu is gone. Qinmu was very obedient and didn't forget her sister-in-law. Chengwang, just hold Cher. Zhou Chengwang then shifted his attention to Cher. His expression was a little complicated. Cher had been pregnant for a few months. If he and Qinmu could also be pregnant, they would be about the same age now. He gave a faint smile. He had long forgotten the passion he had for Tang Shui, when he was young. Now, his feelings for Qinmu were as mild as water. It was the kind that would flow for a long time, but it was very comfortable. He reached out to hold Cher, but Cher gently broke free from him and slowly walked to Gumei. She tilted her head and looked at Gumei. Gumei was still standing, but her expression was a little embarrassed. Chapter 25:02. As she said that, she slapped him hard and accurately. Gume was stunned. She held her face and stared at Cher blankly. You're pregnant. You think that others don't dare to hit you, but I can. I've said it before. If you dare to hook up with Zhou Chengwang again, I won't let you off. Also, if you show up in front of Qin Mu again, I promise that I will hit you until you miscarry. Do you understand? Gume was embarrassed. Cher sneered. Gume, let's make a bet. In the end, even if you give birth to the child, Zhou Chengwang won't marry you. How could Gume not believe it? She was just making a bet. Cher continued. Of course, you can make a bet. But don't you think that you're being selfish? Gume's voice trembled. But he's already a fetus. Qin Mu is still an adult. Why don't you pity her? Cher didn't soften at all. Gume, I don't care what you've been through in the past. Zhou Chengwang used to be the sunshine in your heart, but he's not anymore. He's like my brother and your own brother now. He's a businessman who only cares about profits. He's not worth it for you to be so stubborn. She paused and said the most serious sentence. He didn't like you in the past, and he doesn't like you now. Gume, you'll never get what you want. Men hate threats the most. With that, she pulled Qin Mu's hand and walked toward the door. She said indifferently, Zhou Chengwang, do you choose to be with the mistress or go home with Qin Mu? Go home. Zhou Chengwang smiled bitterly. He wanted to, but would Qin Mu let him go back? No matter what, he still followed Qin Mu out. Mother Zhou could tell that Qin Mu wasn't pregnant, so she called out to her son. Chengwang. Zhou Chengwang turned around and looked at his mother. His voice was sorrowful. Mom, do you think this is okay? Mother Zhou was stunned for a moment. This was the first time her son embarrassed her in public, and she couldn't find a way out. But she has no position. It was true that Qin Mu was still Chengwang's wife. It was also true that Gu Mei was a dishonorable mistress. She was stunned for a moment, then sighed. You go eat with Qin Mu first. Gu Mei's eyes turned red. Mother Zhou was actually a little dissatisfied, but for the sake of the grandson in her stomach, she couldn't help but sigh. Go back. I must be tired after coming out for so long. Gu Mei pursed her lips. Auntie, do you think I'm particularly insensible? Mother Zhou forced a smile. How can that be? However, Gu Mei could see her reluctance and felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. Without saying anything, the two of them went back in the car. On the other side, Qin Mu had just walked to the parking lot when she stopped and turned around. Cher, and I will call the driver. You can go back. Zhou Chengwang had already opened the car door, but his fingers paused when he heard that. He looked at her deeply. Didn't you say you wanted to eat hot pot? Qin Mu didn't say anything and kicked her leather shoes. He suddenly understood. In fact, he should have understood it, but he still had hope in his heart. He hoped that she would really be willing to have a meal with him. So he smiled faintly. We have to eat. Wait for the driver to come. He turned his head and looked at Cher. Are you tired? Cher coughed softly and said in a delicate voice, I'm so tired. Chapter 25:03. Qin Mu was speechless. Why didn't she feel tired when she hit Gu Mei just now? However, Shui felt very good about slapping Gu Mei in the face. However, she was also a little shocked that little Shui would actually hit her. In Qin Mu's impression, little Shui had always been little Shui, the little princess that her brother had protected well. Even though she was older than him by 4 years, she had always been so petite. How could she hit someone? However, at that moment, Qin Mu was really touched. Little Cher really regarded her as her sister-in-law and wanted to protect her. Although Qin Mu was 172 meters tall, at that moment, Cher's aura was 8 meters tall. Now, Zhou Chengwang mentioned Cher, and little Cher betrayed him again. Qin Mu couldn't say anything, so she could only look at Cher. Cher said eagerly, Mu, I want to eat hot pot now. Qin Mu looked at her for a long time and said slowly, Then let's eat. Cher winked at Zhou Chengwang, and Zhou Chengwang smiled. This was the first time in 8 years that they had untied the knot in their hearts. At this moment, Cher thought of that night when Zhou Chengwang took her on a bicycle. At that time, they were still young. In fact, they were quite happy at that time. Shui also smiled at him. Qin Mu, who was at the side, muttered softly, "It looks like the two of you will rekindle your old love." Zhou Chengwang looked at her quietly, while Cher complained, "Moo Moo, do you want me to be beaten to death by your brother?" Qin Mu smiled and got in the car. In order to cater to the pregnant woman's appetite, they had a vegetarian hot pot in the end. Zhou Chengwang took good care of them. Apart from Qin Mu, he also took good care of Cher. Cher ate happily. After she was full, she found an excuse to go to the washroom to give them some space. When only Qin Mu and Zhou Chengwang were left in the private room, the atmosphere was a little strange. Zhou Chengwang placed the dishes for Qin Mu, and his eyes fell on her face. "How have you been recently?" His tone was light, not like a husband, but like an old friend. Qin Mu stopped what she was doing and looked up at him. After a while, she said softly, "I'm all right. Actually, how could it not be good?" He had arranged everything very well, and she was used to it, except for the fact that she didn't need to drink medicine every morning, except for the fact that she didn't have Zhou Chengwang to sleep with her every night. However, no matter what, she was still used to it. She could only get used to it, although she would miss him too. She didn't allow herself to miss him too much, so she walked out. She was willing to go out to work and meet others. She, Qin Mu, wouldn't use her weakness in exchange for love again. She didn't want the people around her to worry about her anymore. She wanted the people who cared about her to know that she could live well without Zhou Chengwang. There should be more than one Zhou Chengwang in her life. However, she didn't tell him this, and there was no need to say it. Time would prove everything. When Qin Mu said that she was all right, Zhou Chengwang was actually a little disappointed. He should be happy that she was doing well, but it meant that she didn't need him anymore. He was dispensable in her life. Zhou Chengwang was speechless for a moment. Qin Mu smiled faintly. "What about you? How are you?" Zhou Chengwang looked down. "Me? It's all right. I'm staying in a hotel, but I don't go back. I sleep in the office most of the time." Chapter 2504. Qin Mu didn't say anything and lowered her head to eat again. Zhou Chengwang's eyes were burning. He pursed his thin lips and said softly, "Moo Moo, are you angry?" He was angry that Gumei's child was still there, but he didn't say it out loud. Even if he didn't say it, Qin Mu understood. She still ate slowly and smiled faintly. "Is it useful to be angry?" With that, she glanced at him and continued to eat. Zhou Chengwang suddenly held her hand and said, "Moo Moo, maybe we are both waiting for each other to compromise." At this time, Qin Mu completely lost her appetite. She wiped her hands with a wet tissue, slowly and carefully. After a while, she said softly, "I've never waited for you to compromise. Zhou Chengwang, no matter what happens, I will respect your decision." She smiled and said, "That was before. You said it, and I accepted it. Whether you choose Gumei or have other plans, I also have my own choice. But what I've never wanted is for you to compromise with me. What you're saying now is that you're waiting for me to compromise. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for me to agree to let Gumei have a child?" With that, she chuckled and said, "That's her belly, her child. She can give birth to it if she wants. It has nothing to do with me." She looked at him and said in a softer voice, "What I want of my husband's reaction, his choice, and it depends on my mood." "I understand, Zhou Chengwang." He understood with difficulty, and then he saw a trace of disdain in her eyes. He knew what she thought of him. In fact, he was in a dilemma. It was not that he didn't want to give up the child, but in the current situation, it was not good for him to do anything. If he forcibly aborted the child, could he and Moo Moo be together? No, that thorn was still there in her heart. Zhou Chengwang smiled bitterly and didn't continue this topic. It was obvious that Qin Mu was angry. He regretted it, so he said in a low voice, "Let's not talk about this, okay? Then what can we say?" Qin Mu looked at him and said tiredly, "Zhou Chengwang, I don't want to force you, so don't force me, okay?" He looked at her and asked softly after a long time, "Moo Moo, it's only been a month. Have you gotten used to living without me?" She nodded. "As I said, it's not bad." For a moment, he felt a little disappointed and did not speak for a long time. While the atmosphere was a little gloomy, Qin Mu raised her face and said, "You should leave first if you have something to do. I'll send Cher back." But how could he bear to do so? Even though the atmosphere was not so good, he was still willing to sit like this and look at her. When Cher came out, she knew at a glance that they had broken up again. Neither of them looked good. She sighed in her heart. No one would be relieved about this matter. If Qin Mu could easily forgive her, she would not be Qin Mu. In the end, Zhou Chengwang sent her back to pay Yuan first, and then sent Qin Mu to the villa where she lived. The white sports car slowly stopped at the parking lot in front of the villa. When Qin Mu reached out to drive away, her hand was held by him. She looked at him sideways. "Don't you want to invite me up?" he said in a hoarse voice, and there was a hint of longing in his eyes. In addition to missing her, he also missed this home. He was very attached to everything here, so he didn't want to stay in a hotel and would rather sleep in the office. Chapter 2505. Qin Mu turned her head and looked at him. "Zhou Chengwang, do you think our current relationship is suitable? We haven't divorced yet. What do you think our relationship is?" He closed his eyes. "Qin Mu, do you hate me so much? You don't even want me to go back home?" At that time, she sold the house and he bought the villa back. Actually, it was under his name. Now, as a man, he should transfer the ownership to her generously, but he didn't. It wasn't that he was stingy, but it was as if she was still living in his place, he was still supporting her, and she was still his little wife. In name, he knew that she no longer regarded him as his wife. Qin Mu gritted her teeth and opened the door. "Get out if you want a cup of tea." Although she said it reluctantly, he still smiled and got out of the car with her. When the servants saw him, they were a little stunned. "Why was Sir back?" Zhou Chengwang quickly got out of the car and held Qin Mu's hand. "Let go. What are you doing?" Qin Mu was a little annoyed. "Zhou Chengwang, don't push your luck. Relax. Otherwise, people will see that we don't get along," he said in a low voice. Qin Mu was so angry that she laughed. "Zhou Chengwang, your woman outside is already pregnant. Do you think people will think that our relationship is good? Is it not good?" He immediately grabbed her hand and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head. "That night, you really couldn't bear to part with me, right? That night, you kept me for one night. Is that true? You insisted on staying." Qin Mu pursed her lips. She already regretted bringing him back. She also wanted to call security, but it seemed too embarrassing. Would it be on the news? Zhou Chengwang looked at her with burning eyes. "You could have refused, but you didn't." With that, he lowered his head and kissed her lips. Regardless of her struggle, he put her hands behind her back. Qin Mu was stunned. She looked at him and forgot to resist. He didn't kiss her too harshly. It was just a light kiss, but he touched everything that needed to be touched. After kissing for about 10 minutes, when Qin Mu's breathing was slightly chaotic, he let go of her. His thin lips covered her ears, and his voice was hoarse beyond recognition. "If you don't want to sleep with me, then push me away." And Qin Mu immediately felt the change in his body. She blushed and pushed him away. Zhou Chengwang smiled and reached out to touch her little face. "I still have something to do. I'll be leaving first." After saying that, he leaned forward and kissed her on the lips. While she was still in a daze, he turned around and left. Qin Mu stood in the hall, watching him get into the car and drive away. For a long time, she didn't come back to her senses. She didn't know why, but a sense of reluctance arose in her heart. But she did not stop him. When he said he had something to do, he actually had something to do. But if she asked him to stay, he would stay. No matter how big the matter was, he would not leave. Qin Mu thought that he had probably learned to respect her, but they seemed to be drifting apart. Zhou Chengwang sat in the car for a long time. Then he smiled helplessly. How could he hope that Qin Mu would come over and stop him? She was such a proud person, and after seeing Gu Mei like that today, it was already good enough that she didn't slap him. When he thought of Gu Mei, his eyes turned cold. Chapter 2506. In Pei Garden. Cher lived in Pei Garden for a long time after she got pregnant. She and Yi Muyun slept in the bedroom where he used to live. But now she had moved in a lot of women's things, not just a place where she slept at night like before. After all, it was better for a little girl to avoid sleeping with a man. Now it was different. She could stay in his arms every day, and sometimes she would stay there until noon before letting him go. Xiao Yishu was also taken care of by her grandmother. Cher often thought happily that marriage was really good. Yi Muyun returned to the villa at 6 o'clock. After dinner, they took a walk in the courtyard. It was already past 8 o'clock when he returned to the bedroom to rest. Pregnant women always slept a lot, and Mr. Yi had recently developed the habit of going to bed early. He came out of the bathroom wearing only a white bathrobe. His black hair was still dripping with water all the way to his heart, and then down. Cher leaned against the headboard, holding a children's book in her hand and doing prenatal education. At this time, she saw Mr. Yi come out, and she looked at him eagerly, almost drooling. "What's wrong?" Mr. Yi wiped his hair with a towel and asked casually. In fact, her expression of wanting to eat streaky pork had already betrayed her. He secretly wondered if he was too incompetent as a husband. That was why his little wife always looked like she didn't have enough to eat. Cher threw away the book in her hand and reached out to ask for a hug. Yi Miyun ignored her and continued to firmly dry her hair. Only then did she slowly walk over and lie down beside her. His little fellow couldn't wait for a long time. She was really a little greedy now. There were many things she couldn't do, but she had a persistent desire for his body. It often made him so uncomfortable that he ran to the bathroom to solve it. But even so, he still chose to let her feel comfortable. Just like at this moment, he leaned against the headboard and looked at the little black head with deep eyes, like a little girl eating candy. She was really too much. He grabbed her little head and put her in his arms. He said in a low voice, "All right, Schwerer, if you continue like this, your husband probably won't be able to be with you anymore." She looked at him innocently and licked her lips. "I still want to kiss you. If you keep kissing her, she'll die," he said with a serious expression. He couldn't do anything about it. Cher lay on his chest and giggled. She poked his chest with her little hand. "Are you feeling very uncomfortable?" And Mr. Yi said honestly and then kissed her eyebrows. "Okay, good girl. I'll go to the washroom first." She knew what he wanted to do, so she reached out and hugged him, looking at him tenderly. "Hubby, haven't you thought about me?" "What?" He smiled and pinched her little face. "What can I expect from you?" In fact, she was already 4 months pregnant and could do it, but he looked at her small melon-like body and still didn't dare to take the risk. He would rather solve it himself. Cher's little face blushed again and again, but she just hugged him and didn't let go. She was so entangled with him that he lost his soul. After a long time, he nibbled on her little ear. "Did you think about it?" She didn't speak, but just buried her little face in his chest. Her slender little arms circled around his waist and slowly moved down. Yi Muyun's breath quickened, and he squinted. "Cher, are you sure?" Chapter 25:07. He couldn't help but hold her little face and kiss her lightly. He didn't dare to be rough. He kissed her very gently and carefully. Cher was extremely obedient and was full of desire for him, like a little girl. It was really terrible. Yi Muyun restrained himself and only dared to do it gently once. After it was over, the little guy panted softly, and he asked again and again nervously. Cher was a little impatient. She stretched out her little foot and kicked him. "Yi Muyun, you are so annoying now." Mr. Yi felt a little wronged. When did loving his wife and being anxious about her become a shortcoming? However, his pregnant little wife had to be patient. No matter how unreasonable she was, he still had to endure it. He stuck his body behind his little wife and rubbed her waist thoughtfully. Her little waist became very round because of her pregnancy. From the back, she looked like a little frog with slender limbs. It was quite cute, but it didn't prevent a husband from being interested in his wife. At the very least, Yi Miyun was always very interested in Shui. Although this child's arrival was a pleasant surprise, he really hadn't played enough with her. Just like now, how could he be satisfied after coming here in fear? Not only was he not completely satisfied, but he also had to endure to appease his little wife. But he was satisfied in his heart. Cher calmed down, turned over, and leaned against the bed with her round belly. She glanced at her husband and sighed. "Today, I met Zhou Chengwang, and it reminded me of the past." Yi Miyun originally wanted to go to the bathroom, but when he heard her mention this, he paused and smiled. "What do you think?" Cher tilted her little head and looked regretful. "I see that Zhou Chengwang is very loyal to Qinmu now. In fact, Thinking about it, if you didn't shamelessly move to Pay Garden, you probably wouldn't have anything to do with it in the future, and it wouldn't have been easy for Qingmu. Mr. Ye's face darkened. He looked at his little wife. Are you saying that you've fallen for that scumbag, Zhou Chengwang? It was not an exaggeration to say that now. Cher looked up. I don't think he's a scumbag anymore. He's quite affectionate. Mr. Yi sneered. Can he endure 8 years for you? Cher smiled and said, Mr. Yi, you seem to have forgotten that you had a girlfriend before. Her name was Song Karen or something. That's just an illusion. Mr. Yi was a little embarrassed. Cher was still smiling. You haven't kissed her? Mr. Yi was embarrassed and sneered. At least, you can do other things without any pressure after kissing me. For example, serving me tonight. I left some places clean for you. Shui'er could not bear to listen to him. Was this something the cold and aloof chairman you would say? Mr. Yi said and got off the bed. He didn't mean to cover himself with anything. He said proudly, Clean, do you know? Cher covered her face. Yi Muyun, you're shameless. I was angry because of you. He spat out a few words. I'm going to the bathroom. He was going to accompany her, but he was very angry now. When he came back, Cher was still lying on the bed. She didn't want to wash up. However, she was much more obedient. She leaned close to him and said in a low voice, Brother, do you think Qingmu will forgive Zhou Chengwang? Chapter 25:08. Will Zhou Chengwang let Gumei give birth? Cher sat up and shook his arm, looking a little anxious. Yi Muyun sighed. Even Gu Zhe has come forward, but Gumei is stubborn. Other than using force now, Gumei is determined to give birth. Using force? Cher frowned. Zhou Chengwang probably wouldn't do such a thing. It was one thing for Gumei to be willing, but it was another thing for a man to abort his own child. That seemed even scarier. She asked, Then what should we do in the end? Yi Muyun looked down at her and said softly, I don't know what to do. I can see that Qingmu still has feelings for Zhou Chengwang, but she also has her own pride. She doesn't want to force Zhou Chengwang to do such a thing. But I think that if Qingmu can get over it, it won't make a difference whether the child is born or not. Cher understood. Qingmu was trying to give up, and Zhou Chengwang acquiesced. She sniffed and said softly, It'll be a pity if they can't be together. Yi Muyun smiled and held his little wife in his arms. He rested his chin on her hair and said softly, I believe that Qingmu won't fall in the hands of a man twice. She's grown up now. She's not a 14-year-old girl anymore. You have to believe in her, understand? Cher grunted in acknowledgement. Yi Muyun changed the topic. I heard that you hit Gumei today, is that true? Shui'er looked at him pitifully, her voice a little soft. Yeah, my hand hurts. Look, big brother. At this moment, the little girl's eyes were filled with tears, as if she was the one who was hit. Yi Muyun was annoyed and amused at the same time. He flattened her little hand and said seriously, It seems a little red. That's right, it hurts. She frowned and threw herself into his arms. It wasn't because of Gu Zhe, but because of Gu Zhe. Even Yi Muyun had to give Gu Zhe some face and couldn't be too unsightly. Actually, Cher had already noticed this a long time ago. Now that she was like this, Yi Muyun couldn't do anything to her. He could only warn her in a low voice. Did you forget that you're pregnant when you hit me? She stuck out her tongue. Yi Muyun pinched her little face. I'll send someone to follow you in case you get into trouble. Cher replied with an no and didn't dare to say anything else. Yi Muyun stared at his little wife for a long time, lecturing her until she was obedient. But in the end, he still took a hot towel and gently cleaned her up before hugging her to sleep. Her little body was warm, and it was very comfortable to hold her in his arms. Sometimes when Yi Muyun woke up in the middle of the night, he still felt that such happiness was a little unreal. Sure enough, people couldn't be too happy. As for Gu Zhe, he had talked to Gu Zhe once. He didn't tell Cher about his conversation with Gu Zhe, and he couldn't tell Cher either. The reason why it was difficult for Yi Muyun to deal with was because of Gu Zhe and Zhou Chengwang. Zhou Chengwang had long been a rising star in B City. Although he couldn't compete with Boyi, his strength couldn't be underestimated. Gu Zhe, Yi Muyun sighed softly. He had never suppressed Gu Zhe. In the early years, Gu Zhe was still low-key, but now, Guzé's private company, Huawei, had become an important partner of Boyi, and Guzé had also resigned from Boyi. Chapter 2509. Qin Mu's life gradually returned to normal. She spent another month taking care of the gallery, and it would be able to open after the new year. She gradually adapted to living alone. She hadn't seen Zhou Chengwang for a month. He would only call her occasionally, and she would respond to him with a few words. Because Gu Mei's child was still alive. Gu Mei came to her once and begged her not to abort her child. Qin Mu sneered at that time. She should have begged Zhou Chengwang, shouldn't she? However, Gu Mei's child was 6 months old now, and he hadn't seen her for a long time. Qin Mu thought that she should give up. Even if she loved him, she couldn't tolerate the existence of Gu Mei's child. Moreover, she heard that Zhou Chengwang's mother was seriously ill. As her daughter-in-law, Qin Mu should have gone to see her, but she didn't. It was really unnecessary. Qin Mu put the small box in the trunk and drove to the gallery. As she drove, she couldn't help thinking of these unpleasant things, but she chose to forget them. When she arrived at the gallery, she had been busy from morning to night. She only ordered a simple meal for lunch. After a day's work, it was already night. When Qin Mu drove back to the villa, she was a little tired, but her heart was even more tired. She sat in the car for a long time and then slowly moved her body to get out of the car. However, she had only moved a few times when the door was opened. Zhou Chengwang was standing outside the door. Qin Mu was a little shocked. She slowly got out of the car and said, "Zhou Chengwang, why are you here?" Zhou Chengwang's thin lips were tightly pursed. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Mu, will you go to the hospital with me?" She immediately guessed that it was his mother's illness. Zhou Chengwang's mother's illness came very quickly. Was she going to die in just 1 month? Qin Mu was a little stunned. After a long time, she whispered, "Okay, I'll go with you." Whether she was happy or not, she was still willing to see an old man when he was dying. Although she knew it would be unpleasant, Qin Mu was still willing to meet him. She got into Zhou Chengwang's car. He drove, and she sat beside him. Looking at him from the side, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight in the past month. Qin Mu asked quietly, "How is she?" Zhou Chengwang pursed his lips tightly. He held the steering wheel with one hand and held her hand with the other. His voice was a little hoarse. "Not too good. It might happen tomorrow morning." It was acute leukemia. If they couldn't find a match, no amount of money would be of any use. Qin Mu had heard of it before, but she didn't ask about it in detail. Now that she heard it, she pursed her lips. "Take care of yourself." That was all she could say. It was not convenient for her to ask about anything else. She thought that Zhou Chengwang's mother would explain to the child in Gu Mei's belly in the end. At this time, Zhou Chengwang would probably agree to any conditions, and she couldn't blame him. Qin Mu felt that she was very calm now, so she didn't say anything after saying that. However, Zhou Chengwang spoke. Perhaps this was the only chance for them to be alone now. There were some things he still wanted to say to her alone. Whether she was angry or beat him or scolded him, he had to bear it. Zhou Chengwang's voice was hoarse. "Mumu, I'm sorry. Gu Mei's child. I've decided to let her give birth to it." Chapter 2510. She pursed her lips, and her face was terrifyingly pale. After a long time, she said in a low voice, "I understand." Zhou Chengwang held her little hand and did not let go. His voice was sorrowful. "Mumu, I'm sorry." She smiled lightly. "What else can you say other than sorry?" He was speechless for a moment. There was nothing he could say. Qin Mu forced a smile. Only she knew how ugly her smile was. She thought that she was strong enough, but now her heart was trembling, her hands were trembling, and her entire body was trembling. She raised her head and held back her tears. "Zhou Chengwang, are you going to marry her?" "No," he answered quickly and then took the time to look at her. His eyes were almost cautious, as if he was afraid that she would be angry and refuse to go with him. Qin Mu sneered. "No. Then why do you want that child to become an illegitimate child? Why should the child bear the responsibility for your and Gu Mei's mistakes?" When she said this, she realized why she was willing to give in. It was because it was not the child's fault. It was Gu Mei and him's fault. Perhaps it was because the child was Zhou Chengwang's, so she could not be so cruel. Qin Mu's tears fell. Zhou Chongwang, it may be a little cruel to say this to you now, but I still want to tell you. Look at a divorce. He did not let go of her hand, nor did he say anything. He just sped up. The car sped through the night, incredibly fast. Half an hour later, the high-performance sports car screeched to a stop in the parking lot of Xinyuan Hospital. A large part of the reason why Qi-mu knew about Zhou Chengwang's mother's illness was from Lan Yu. Although Lan Yu was not in the country, there were always gossip doctors who would spread the news. For example, Gu Mei served Zhou Chengwang's mother. Qi-mu did not want to hear about this. When she knew about Zhou Chengwang's mother's illness, she knew that the child would be born. The car stopped, and it was dark inside. She looked sideways at Zhou Chengwang. Get out of the car. There were some things that should be said clearly before one's death, so that the old man would not be able to rest in peace. Qi-mu thought that she would just take it as what her brother owed them back then, and she was just returning it to them. Just as she was about to open the car door, Zhou Chengwang grabbed her hand and pressed his lips against hers. He kissed her lips roughly, and when she wanted to resist, he held her little face with both hands, not letting her move. As long as Qi-mu moved, her face would hurt. The kiss lasted for about 2 minutes before he pulled away, panting. His body fell heavily against the back of the chair, and there was a sense of despair. Qi-mu, you're terrifyingly calm. I wonder if you still love me. He covered his eyes with the back of his hand and let out a long sigh. Qi-mu was still calm. My calmness doesn't mean that I don't love you anymore. It means that I accept my fate. She looked at him. Zhou Chengwang, you have to be fair to me. As she said that, her voice was a little choked. She quickly opened the car door and got out. The moment she got out of the car, her tears fell, and she could not wipe them away with the back of her hand. She sobbed. Zhou Chengwang, it's not that I can't tolerate you, but I don't know what to do. She looked at him. Tell me, what should I do? Under the dim yellow light, they stared at each other. Chapter 25:11. There was something almost sharp in his eyes, and this sharpness stung his own eyes. Zhou Chengwang closed his eyes slightly. Qi-mu, I won't. I won't. Qi-mu turned her head and looked at him under the light, almost breaking down. She kept shaking her head. Don't ask too much of me. You already know that I'm very selfish. I can't tolerate even a grain of sand in my eyes, she murmured again, unless I don't love you. Just like in the past, she didn't love him, so she endured 4 years of him having a woman outside. But now, in order to continue the marriage, she had to be loyal. She didn't want to experience it again. She didn't want to wait until she was old and found out that she had just had a beautiful dream, and the truth was so cruel. She was afraid and didn't want to continue. Or rather, he couldn't give her a sense of trust anymore. Qi-mu knew that on one hand, it was his past, and on the other hand, it was her psychology. She didn't want to force herself. She would rather live a better life. Zhou Chengwang stepped forward and hugged her tightly. He was crying, but he didn't want her to know. He hugged her for a long time until they calmed down together. When she went to see Mrs. Zhou, Gu Mei wasn't there. When Qi-mu saw Mrs. Zhou, she was already on the verge of death. After not seeing her for a month, her face was almost devoid of flesh, and her eyes were deeply sunken. But when she looked at Qi-mu, her eyes lit up as if she had seen light in the darkness. Her breath was weak. Mumu. This was the first time that Mrs. Zhou had called her like that. It was probably because her mind wasn't very clear anymore. She had heard Zhou Chengwang say it too many times, so she called her like that. Qi-mu knew that when she looked at the old woman who was about to leave, all her resentment and disgust would leave. All that was left was an indescribable sigh. Human life was so fragile. Mumu, you're crying. Mrs. Zhou's fingers moved. She wanted to raise them, but in the end, she couldn't do it. Qi-mu shook her head. No, I'm not crying. Mrs. Zhou's eyes widened as if she had tried her best. Can you call me Mom? Qi-mu walked over and sat in front of the bed. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with her hand and said softly, Mom. Mrs. Zhou's pupils were a little dilated. She looked straight at the ceiling, but there was a smile on her lips, as if she was very pleased. After a long time, she moved her lips slightly. Don't divorce, please, she tried her best to make it clear, and Qi-mu also understood. She didn't nod. Zhou Kerson's mother's eyes were eager. She used the last bit of oil to support her life. She knew that she was too selfish, so she got what she deserved. But the Zhou family child was already so big. How could she bear to abort it? No one knew that Mrs. Zhou had already changed the medicine half a month ago. She was going to die anyway. It didn't matter if she died earlier or later. If she left earlier, she could beg Qin Mu to make Cheng Guang less sad. Mrs. Zhou saw that Qin Mu didn't speak for a long time. Her lips moved, and so did her body. She wanted to get up, kneel down, and beg Qin Mu. She wanted to tell Qin Mu that Cheng Guang couldn't live without her. But in the end, she couldn't get up. Her body fell down heavily. She gasped for breath, but she exhaled more than she inhaled. Just take it that his father's life was exchanged, okay? 2 drops of tears rolled down Mrs. Zhou's eyes. Chapter 25:12. Mrs. Zhou's voice was very weak, but Qin Mu could still hear it. She looked at the old man quietly, and there was a little hurt in her eyes. She thought that people who were about to die were so fearless that they could put forward any conditions. Just like when she wanted to be with Zhou Chengguang, everyone was worried about her feelings and didn't dare to provoke her. It turned out that people who were fearless were so hateful and pitiful. Qin Mu's lips moved. She didn't know what she said, and then Mrs. Zhou's eyes closed. She didn't leave, but she was no longer able to speak or open her eyes. She seemed to be about to sleep, and there was only a little time left. The old man was holding on to his last breath because he wanted her not to divorce. Qin Mu took a step back and looked at the peaceful face quietly. She lowered her eyes and whispered, "Zhou Chengguang, is this what you want?" The man next to her held her hand and said in a very low voice, "I'm sorry, Mumu. Please let her go without regrets." Qin Mu's expression was blank, and then she looked at him sideways. "She's gone, and I don't feel anything. Everything is the perception of the living." He looked into her eyes with a pained expression. He knew everything. Qin Mu didn't say anything more. She just sat on the small sofa beside him and silently accompanied him. On this darkest night in Zhou Chengguang, Qin Mu accompanied him. He sat by his mother's bed, and his eyes quietly fell on Mrs. Zhou's face. At that time, Zhou Chengguang's mind was full of childhood memories. By dawn, Mrs. Zhou was already very weak, and the drip couldn't be put in. The doctor came over and silently removed the drip stand. He whispered, "Mrs. Zhou has about half an hour left." At that time, Zhou Chengguang raised his eyes, and Qin Mu saw that his face was ashen. Death was like an extinguished lamp. At this time, she couldn't argue with him. All the conflicts were hidden in Zhou Chengguang's sorrow. The funeral was very solemn and grand. Gumei didn't come. Qin Mu, as Zhou Chengguang's wife, attended the whole funeral. In the early winter morning, in front of Mother Zhou's grave, sunlight shone on the white tombstone, and the white flowers in front of the tombstone still had morning dew. Zhou Chengguang had been standing there with Qin Mu by his side. His relatives and friends had already left. Zhao Zi walked over and patted him on the shoulder. He looked at Qin Mu, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Zhao Zi also left, leaving only Zhou Chengguang and Qin Mu at the scene. He was still standing, and his voice was very soft. "Will you leave me?" Qin Mu shook her head. "I don't know, Zhou Chengguang. I can understand, but please understand me." He smiled bitterly and turned back. His handsome face was haggard. In the past month, he hadn't slept well. He whispered, "Have our feelings reached the point of mutual respect?" Qin Mu closed her eyes slightly. "Maybe this will be better." After Gumei's child was born, it was really difficult for her to hug him and give herself to him like in the past. She couldn't do this. She promised Mrs. Zhou because she didn't want an old man to die with hatred. If she owed the Zhou family, then she had paid it back. In the future, she wouldn't owe them anymore. Chapter 25:13. Qin Mu walked to his car with him. She looked at him and asked, "Are you still staying in the hotel?" He nodded and looked at her. Qin Mu smiled and said, "Then take care of yourself." She then lifted her chin and said, "My driver is driving over." Just as she was about to leave, he reached out and hugged her. He hugged her completely, hugging her very tightly. Qin Mu rested her face on his shoulder and said softly, Zhou Chengwang, you have to be well, okay? She was no longer a 14-year-old girl, and she was no longer the woman who hated her husband because he had treated her well. She didn't want to break up with him in the end. She was willing to give him the last bit of warmth if he needed it, but there was nothing else she could do. Zhou Chengwang rubbed his face against her neck and said in a hoarse voice, Qin Mu, I can't be well without you. She didn't push him away and let him hug her. Under the morning sun, their shadows were stretched out. Finally, she said softly, I'm sorry. I told your mother a white lie. His body stiffened, and he realized that Qin Mu had never thought of getting back together with him if the child was still alive. His eyes were slightly wet. Qin Mu, this time, she pushed him away gently and looked at him with clear eyes. Chengwang, I think even if we separate, what we leave behind will be beautiful. His eyes were burning. But I have never thought of separating from you. I can raise the child abroad, and I will persuade Gumei to give up the child. Qin Mu lowered his eyes and chuckled. Will she agree? Zhou Chengwang begged in a low voice. I will try my best, Qin Mu. I know what you care about. You don't have confidence in me, so I will try my best to minimize the damage. Qin Mu turned her face away and smiled with tears in her eyes. Zhou Chengwang, don't be like this. If you do this, I will feel that I don't love you enough, and I will even feel guilty. You see, after so many things happened, I left you alone. Really, don't make yourself too tired. You'll be very tired when you're with me. I don't know if we'll go to the end, even if I agree now. Qin Mu's voice was almost trembling. Zhou Chengwang took a step forward and pulled her into his arms again. He didn't say anything and just hugged her. In the end, Qin Mu still got into his car. In a trance, she was taken to his hotel suite. When she came to her senses, she was pressed between the sheets and kissed, and his actions showed what he wanted to do. Zhou Chengwang, Qin Mu sounded like she was about to cry. Let me go. I don't want to. He didn't say anything. He just lowered his body and buried his face in her neck. His every move was filled with the taste of despair, and every time it seemed like it would be his last. Everything was done in silence. Even his sweat was slightly cold. Later, Qin Mu stopped struggling, and he slowly let go of her wrist and clasped his fingers tightly. She had endured his longing and his sorrow. Time and time again, they had clung to each other to the death. Chapter 25:14. Qin Mu moved a little in his arms, and he hugged her even harder in return. I want to go to the bathroom. Qin Mu's voice was soft. Zhou Chengwang was a little uncomfortable. He grabbed his hair and said, I'll carry you. He was willing, but Qin Mu wasn't. She pushed him and said, I'll go by myself. He looked a little dazed, but he let her go in the end. Then I'll order food. You must be hungry. It was already night outside. They hadn't eaten for a day. Qin Mu nodded and said, Okay, you do as you see fit. She got out of bed carefully, but when she stepped on the carpet, she couldn't help but frown. Does it still hurt? His voice was hoarse. Thinking of his unwillingness at the end, he seemed to be a little rough. Qin Mu looked at him and went to the bathroom while enduring the pain. Zhou Chengwang used the intercom at the bedside to order food. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Qin Mu came out. When she came out, she was already wearing a bathrobe, as if she had just taken a shower. He said, Why didn't you wait for me to shower together? Qin Mu sat in front of the dresser and began to dry her hair. Zhou Chengwang looked at her and knew that she was regretting it. He was silent for a while before he walked in the bathroom. When he came out, he was wearing the same bathrobe as hers. She was still sitting there, and her hair was half dry. Behind her, he took over the hairdryer and quietly dried her hair. When he was done, he held a strand of her hair, bent down slowly, and hugged her tightly. Qin Mu, give me another chance. She was still sitting and looking at him quietly in the mirror. He slowly tightened his arms, enjoying the rare warmth. He hadn't hugged her for too long. It wasn't because of the love jade, but because of her warmth. Qin Mu closed her eyes slightly. Zhou Chengwang, don't force me. Obviously, you still love me, he said in a low voice and kissed her little neck. When I wanted you just now, you didn't refuse. As he spoke, his large palm began to behave unruly again. Qin Mu immediately grabbed his hand. Zhou Chengwang, your mother's funeral was held this morning. He firmly pulled her hand away and continued to say firmly, her biggest wish is that we don't divorce. As he said this, he planted a kiss behind her ear, intending to possess her. Qin Mu felt that she had underestimated him. Now that she thought about it, it wasn't Mother Zhou who had kidnapped her morally, but him. He knew it, but he still brought her there. How sinister. Qin Mu raised her head slightly and said slowly, let me think about it. But there was nothing she could do because he had already carried her to the mirror. He hugged her from behind and nibbled her bit by bit. His voice was hot. Mumu, you can think about it. Think about it slowly. Just as he was about to take possession of her, there was a knock on the door. Zhou Chengwang cursed in a low voice and comforted her in a low voice. The waiter will bring the food over. I'll go open the door. Qin Mu bit her lip and grunted. Her eyes were filled with tears. He kissed her for a while, then put on his bathrobe and went to open the door. But it wasn't the waiter outside the door, but Gu Mei, who was 7 months pregnant. She placed her hand on her protruding belly and looked at Zhou Chengwang, who was standing by the door. Although his bathrobe was neat and tidy, his handsome face was stained with deep emotions. That was the expression a man would have when he was doing that kind of thing. Gu Mei's lips trembled slightly. You have another woman. Chapter 25:15. Before Zhou Chengwang could speak, Qin Mu had already walked over. She was wearing the same bathrobe as Zhou Chengwang's, and it pierced Gu Mei's eyes. Gu Mei held her stomach and took a step back. Her face turned paler. It's actually you. Qin Mu smiled faintly. Zhou Chengwang and I are not divorced. What's so strange about sleeping together? Gu Mei seemed to be deeply shocked. She had thought that the child in her stomach would be guaranteed to marry Zhou Chengwang all the way. As long as Zhou Chengwang's mother was around, she could take the child away and threaten the old woman who had gone crazy thinking about her grandson. But she didn't expect Zhou Chengwang's mother to pass away so quickly. This kind of illness could usually drag on for 3 to 5 months, unless she didn't want to live anymore. Gu Mei's character had been completely twisted at this moment. The little bit of kindness she once had was long gone. What she wanted was the title of Mrs. Zhou. She had longed for it for so many years. Qin Mu didn't love Zhou Chengwang that much. If she loved him, she would be able to accept everything about Zhou Chengwang. So, only she and Zhou Chengwang were suitable. Gu Mei smiled lightly. Qin Mu, his mother just passed away. Do you think this is appropriate? Qin Mu sneered. Miss Gu, my husband pressed me down and wanted to make love with me. Is it a crime? Or does it have something to do with Miss Gu? If Miss Gu had such a strong sense of morality, you wouldn't have appeared in front of a married man's hotel with a pregnant belly. Gu Mei's face turned red and white. Qin Mu, I'm pregnant with Zhou Chengwang's child. I'm definitely giving birth to this child. Qin Mu chuckled softly. Do as you please. Also, I'm definitely not divorcing him. If Miss Gu likes to be a single mother, then be one to your heart's content. Gu Mei's face was as pale as paper. She tried her best to suppress her anger. But Zhou Chengwang is the child's father. I didn't stop him. Qin Mu sneered. You can make him a good father. Zhou Chengwang put his arm around her shoulder and said softly, Mu, go in. Qin Mu didn't want to argue with Gu Mei. She nodded and was about to close the door when she heard footsteps in the corridor. Then, Gu Zhe appeared. His gaze first landed on Qin Mu and Zhou Chengwang before moving to Gu Mei's face. He scolded sternly, Return with me. Gu Mei stroked her belly and raised her head slightly. She smiled. Brother, why did you rush over? Are you worried about me or the goddess in your heart? Huh? Gu Zhe's face darkened. He raised his hand and gave his sister a slap. Gu Mei, do you know what you're saying? What are you doing? Gu Mei's face was gloomy. He slapped his sister and said, Gu Mei, do you know what you're saying and doing? Then, she said coldly, Gu Zhe, what right do you have to hit me? You were no longer my brother when you let me go to prison for your own sake 8 years ago. Gu Zhe's face was livid. He said coldly, Gu Mei, there's a limit to your willfulness. What have you done to yourself for a man? Chapter 25:16. Gume shook her head and stepped back. Brother, don't you know that this isn't fair? Guze held her shoulders and said coldly, There's no such thing as fairness in a relationship. Gume looked at him and smiled gently. I won't be a fool like you. What protection? That's something that a fool would do. Brother, love is possessiveness. Do you understand? And then, destroy together? Guze asked calmly. Do you think you can make the person you love happy? Gume laughed softly. He'll be happy because we'll have a child. Guze did not look at her anymore. He turned to look at Zhou Chengwang and Qin Mu. Sorry for disturbing you. I'll take her away. Gume deserved what she got today. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Guze left with Gume. Even when the door was closed, Gume's screams could still be heard. It was piercing. Qin Mu looked at Zhou Chengwang and asked softly, You really don't need to care? Gume was already 7 months pregnant. Was he really not worried? Zhou Chengwang pursed his lips. I don't need to care. She did not speak anymore. But when it was time to eat, she lost her appetite. Of course, Zhou Chengwang did not have the mood to do it with her. At night, he just hugged her from behind quietly. At that time, Qin Mu suddenly felt that perhaps Gume had a place in Zhou Chengwang's heart. Otherwise, with his ruthlessness in the business world, it would be impossible for Gume's stomach to be safe to this day. Such a thought was like a trick in her mind. She did not sleep well that night. She knew that he did not sleep well. At around 5 a.m. in the morning, Qin Mu turned around in his embrace. She hugged his neck with her small hands and pressed her lips against his. Zhou Chengwang seemed to be stunned for a moment. He said hoarsely, Qin Mu, you're still worried, aren't you? Qin Mu asked softly. At this moment, she was hugging his neck and her whole body was hanging on his body. Zhou Chengwang was stunned for a moment before he shook his head. Qin Mu, it's not. Then make love to me and prove yourself, she said, deliberately deepening the kiss and teasing him. Zhou Chengwang. It took a while for him to react, which meant that he had something on his mind. Qin Mu lowered her eyes to hide her thoughts. He was a little absent-minded and didn't play any tricks. He just kept coming and going. This kind of thing was also a little depressing. When his phone rang, he seemed to wake up and immediately reached out to answer it. Qin Mu lay in his arms and heard Gume's weak voice. Zhou Chengwang, I'll wait for you at home. I've taken a lot of sleeping pills. Almost immediately, Qin Mu saw Zhou Chengwang's jaw tighten. He was still with her, but the next second, he pulled away from her and said in a low voice, I'll go out for a while. Qin Mu was still lying down, and her brown curly hair was spread out between the pillow. It was very beautiful. However, he was not in the mood to appreciate it. At this moment, he had to rush to another woman's side. She chuckled. Zhou Chengwang, if you receive a call from me halfway and I say that I want to take sleeping pills, will you come back? Zhou Chengwang frowned slightly. Stop it, Mu. She's pregnant. She has to go to the hospital to have her stomach pumped now. Chapter 25:17. When she said that, she also felt that she was vicious, but she chose to forgive herself because no woman could endure such a thing. 1 second, they were still making love. The next second, he had to rush to another woman's side. How ironic. Qin Mu's words didn't stop Zhou Chengwang from putting on his clothes. He just put on his clothes, bent down, and whispered in her ear, because she was in prison for me. I owe her. Mu, I'm sorry. Qin Mu laughed. Sorry? Zhou Chengwang, what do you think I am? A wife who has been waiting for you in the same place? A little fool who can be coaxed back no matter what you do? Yes, she was stupid, so before his mother passed away, he schemed against her and successfully tricked her back to his bed. How easy it was. She sneered. She was in prison for you, so you feel sorry for her. She wanted to sleep with you, so you did. She wanted to give birth to your child, so you gave birth to it. Zhou Chengwang, you wanted to give birth to this child from the beginning to the end. Your mother was just a cover for you, right? She said and smiled with tears in her eyes. You bastard. She picked up the phone on the bedside table and threw it at him. In the past few months, even though she had experienced Gume's pregnancy, she had always thought that she was the most important person in his heart and that he loved her. But only now did Qin Mu understand that there was a certain relationship between Gu Mei and Zhou Chengwang that she couldn't destroy. This kind of relationship would make Zhou Chengwang tolerate anything Gu Mei did. She couldn't even intervene. There were tears in Qin Mu's eyes. The disillusionment made her heart ache. She said in a low voice, "Zhou Chengwang, I won't take sleeping pills, but if you go, we'll get a divorce." He knew that Gu Mei was being willful and using little tricks. Gu Mei had predicted that he would go, so she dared to do this. What kind of certainty would make Gu Mei dare to gamble like this? This kind of speculation made Qin Mu's back turn cold. Zhou Chengwang frowned and said in a deep voice, "Qin Mu, don't mess around. The one I love is you. I only have responsibilities towards Gu Mei." Qin Mu looked into his eyes and felt that they were unfamiliar. She felt that the man in front of her seemed to have returned to a few months ago, before she filed for divorce. Was all the kindness he had shown her all fake? "You're going, aren't you?" she asked very softly. Zhou Chengwang gritted his teeth. "Be good. I'll be back soon. Don't let your imagination run wild." He kissed her on the forehead, then immediately turned around and walked away. At that moment, she saw his nervousness, so that was how it was. The debt he owed Gu Mei and the lows he and Gu Mei had gone through together were things that she, a pure and innocent young lady, could not understand. Qin Mu cried. She turned her face away in embarrassment, unwilling to admit that she had lost. Just a few hours ago, she had told Gu Mei that as long as she didn't get a divorce, Gu Mei's son would always be an illegitimate child. Was that really the case? Qin Mu laughed. Even she herself felt that it was ironic. This Mrs. Zhou must be what she thought she was. No matter how much Zhou Chengwang loved her, there was no way he would abandon Gu Mei. Qin Mu's fingers slowly wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She forced a smile and stood up. She took out her phone and called Zhou Chengwang. Chapter 25:18. Qin Mu smiled faintly. Although there were tears at the corner of her eyes, she did not care about them. She just smiled and said, "Zhou Chengwang, if I say that I want to jump off the building now, will you come back?" He was silent for a long time before he said coldly, "Qin Mu, don't be unreasonable." Her answer was to throw the phone in her hand at the wall. Instantly, the phone broke into pieces. On the other side, Zhou Chengwang frowned. He heard the sound of the phone breaking and knew that she was angry. At this moment, he felt conflicted. If he went back to coax her now, she would probably calm down. However, he knew that she had really taken sleeping pills. She was really capable of doing anything. After weighing the pros and cons, Zhou Chengwang called the front desk of the hotel and asked someone to check on Qin Mu in the room. After hanging up, he stepped on the accelerator and drove in the same direction. When he reached Gu Mei's apartment, he kicked the door open and walked to the bedroom. Gu Mei took the sleeping pills and lay on the bed. Zhou Chengwang went forward and carried her. At this moment, Gu Mei opened her eyes. She hugged Zhou Chengwang and buried her face in his neck. She said softly, "Chengwang, I'm sorry, I just missed you too much." Zhou Chengwang's body froze, and he squinted his eyes. "You didn't take the pills? I thought of the child, so I didn't," Gu Mei said as she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him hard. Zhou Chengwang only felt a sweet taste in his mouth, like candy melting between his lips and teeth. He frowned and put Gu Mei down quickly. His face darkened. "You drugged me again." Gu Mei supported herself with her hands behind her. She tilted her head and smiled. "Yes, but you might not be able to leave." Her voice was very soft. "This drug is very strong. No woman can resist it." Zhou Chengwang's face was green. "Do you know what you were doing?" Sweat the size of beans had already seeped out of his forehead, and his body was also starting to heat up. He could clearly feel the potency of the medicine. Was Gu Mei crazy? Even if he did it with her, she was pregnant now, and the child might be aborted. Gu Mei inched closer to him and looked up. "Since you're here, it means you care about me, right?" Even though she knew he cared about the child, she was still happy. She had children, but Qin Mu did not. This child was destined to help her. Zhou Chengwang pushed her away and headed straight for the door. However, a pair of weak arms wrapped around his waist. Gu Mei's face was stuck to his back, and she sighed. "It's too late, Chengwang. You came here, and Qin Mu can't forgive you anymore. You probably don't understand women well. Zhou Chengwang's expression was a little aghast. He struggled to break free from her and walked towards the door without looking back. Then, he experienced the darkest time of his life. When he got into the car, he received a call from the front desk of the hotel. Qin Mu committed suicide. She slit her wrist. When the front desk lady went in, Qin Mu was lying in the bathtub in her bathrobe. Her hand was hanging by her side, and the blood was dripping down in a straight line. When Zhou Chengwang received the call, he was completely stunned. His Adam's apple kept moving, and his mind was blank. He remembered that when he left, she kept asking if he would stay if she took the sleeping pills. When he was driving, Qin Mu called him. He didn't think much of it and hung up the phone. He remembered her illness. How could he have forgotten that she had suffered from depression? Chapter 25:19. Zhou Chengwang didn't know how he drove to the hospital. His head was dizzy, and his body felt like it was on fire. One moment he was hot, and the next moment he was cold. But he couldn't care less about that. His mind was filled with one thought. Qin Mu committed suicide. As soon as the car stopped, Zhou Chengwang jumped out of the car and quickly ran to the elevator. The elevator opened in front of him. When he entered, his heart was beating so fast that it seemed like it was about to burst out. He turned his head to the side and watched the numbers keep going up until the 3rd floor. As soon as the elevator door opened, he ran out quickly. When Zhou Chengwang walked into the emergency room, the white sheets were stained with blood. It was Qin Mu's blood. She lay quietly on the hospital bed, her face pale and devoid of any trace of blood. Her slender arm was wrapped in bandages over and over again, and the outermost layer of gauze was still seeping with traces of blood. The other arm was being transfused with blood. It was Qin Mu's blood. The dark red blood flowed into Qin Mu's body bit by bit, but her face was still so pale. Zhou Chengwang walked over slowly, knelt down beside Qin Mu, and said in a low voice, "Mumu." Qin Mu's eyes moved slowly, but she didn't open them. She turned her face to the side and said very softly, "Zhou Chengwang, I don't want to hear you say you're sorry." His heart trembled, and he closed his eyes. At this time, the hotel receptionist said in a trembling voice, "Zhou Zong." After I opened the door of the room, I went in and saw Mrs. Zhou lying in the bathtub motionless. I thought she couldn't be saved. The receptionist cried as she spoke. She was just a little girl. Such a frightening scene was too frightening for her, and her body was still trembling. Zhou Chengwang pursed his thin lips and reached out to hold Qin Mu's hand. His voice was extremely hoarse. "Mumu, I won't leave you again." But Qin Mu didn't speak. She just lay there quietly and didn't look at him. Zhou Chengwang, if apologies were useful, there wouldn't be so many breakups. Her hand was held by him. After a long time, she smiled softly. "Zhou Chengwang, my hand hurts. Let go." His heart was suddenly hit, and his handsome face was as pale as paper. His gaze fell on his hand, and he slowly loosened it. Just as he loosened his grip, his collar was grabbed by a powerful palm, and then a series of violent punches followed. Zhou Chengwang's body slammed into the wall of the emergency room. Blood immediately splattered on the white wall. Then his body was grabbed again, and in front of him was a young and angry face. Qin Mo. He was Qin Mu's brother. Qin Mo gritted his teeth. "Zhou Chengwang, are you still human? 8 years ago, you used Qin Mu's illness to break up my brother and share. 8 years later, you forced Qin Mu to this state. Is this the love for Qin Mu that you told my brother?" Qin Mo dragged him out and hit him several more times. Zhou Chengwang's mouth was bleeding. He leaned against the wall, and his eyes were a little sad. "Qin Mo, let me see her. She needs me now. You're not by her side when she needs you the most." Qin Mo almost growled. Zhou Chengwang raised his head. "It's my fault. Let me see her now. I promise I won't hurt her again." Qin Mo sneered. "Zhou Chengwang, what needs you the most now is not Qin Mu, but Gu Mei and the child in her belly." Chapter 25:20. Zhou Chengwang's face turned even paler. Qin Mo's eyes were full of disdain. You're too greedy. You may have feelings for Qin Mu, but your love is full of calculation. Even 10 Qin Mus are no match for you. Gu Mei had a child. If Zhou Chengwang wanted to kill the child, he would have 1,000 ways. Only his silly sister would believe him and believe that Mrs. Zhou wanted the child. Zhou Chengwang's guilt towards Gu Mei was the amulet for the child. Zhou Chengwang's face was pale, and he felt embarrassed that his thoughts had been exposed. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "No matter what Qin Mu decides, at least let me accompany her today, okay?" He thought that Qin Mo would be very difficult to talk to, but unexpectedly, Qin Mo agreed. Don't think that you can still win Qin Mu's trust. Zhou Chengwang just smiled bitterly. How would he not know? Qin Mu passed the critical period and was transferred to the VIP ward to continue to receive an intravenous drip. She was lying down, and Zhou Chengwang sat beside her, quietly accompanying her and occasionally feeding her some water. There was no one else here, and Qin Mu did not refuse his photos, which made Zhou Chengwang feel a little hopeful. Maybe Qin Mu just wanted him to come back because she was willful. However, this glimmer of hope was still shattered. At noon, the servants brought food to Qin Mu. Qin Mu could already sit up. She refused to be fed by Zhou Chengwang and finished her lunch silently. After eating, she did not lie down. Instead, she leaned against the bed and looked at him quietly. Zhou Chengwang's heart was beating wildly, and he said with difficulty, "Mu, I know it's useless to apologize, but believe me, I won't go there again. Don't you care about her and the child's life? Next time she says she wants to commit suicide, can you really remain indifferent?" Qin Mu smiled lightly and then lowered her eyes. "Zhou Chengwang, you and I both know that it's impossible." Zhou Chengwang said softly, "I don't have that kind of feeling for her." "Then how can you have a child?" Qin Mu looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Zhou Chengwang, do you know what principles are? It doesn't matter if you let her have a child, but you have to choose between me and her. You know that she won't commit suicide, but you're still afraid that her and her child might die. What about me? Do you think I can be satisfied just by saying that you love me?" As she spoke, tears fell down her face. Qin Mu quickly wiped them away and continued, "Zhou Chengwang, I'm not asking for anything. I'm giving up." When his face darkened, she said softly, "Zhou Chengwang, I don't want you anymore." Zhou Chengwang's face was ashen. His lips moved, and he said, "But I won't let go. I'll cut my wrists again until you agree." Qin Mu said softly. He narrowed his eyes and grabbed her hand. "Qin Mu, do you hate me so much that you're willing to torture me like this?" If she really wanted to commit suicide, she wouldn't have put her hands outside the bathtub. She would have put them in the water. She didn't cut her wrist to die, but to leave him. Qin Mu looked straight into his eyes. When their eyes met, there was a hint of mockery in her eyes. "You've seen through me." His expression became even more unsightly. Qin Mu smiled. "Zhou Chengwang, but if you really force me, I'll really kill myself." That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.